Welcome back to the National Post Politics Bureau. We're here today with Brian Lee Crowley, the Managing Director of the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, and we are talking about Tuesday's election in the United States, Donald Trump's decisive victory. Brian, I'm just curious, how should Canadians be digesting this election?
Well, Stuart, the first bit of advice I have for Canadians, it's one that I've given myself, we should all take a valium. We need to calm down. I think Canadians have been too affected by the overheated rhetoric of the American election campaign and have stopped seeing the facts as they are on the ground. And remember that whether you like the outcome of the election or not, we can do nothing about it. Donald Trump is the president, it's just a fact. The only thing we can do as Canadians is to control our reaction to that fact. And Donald Trump, if you understand his psychology, Donald Trump is a deal maker. And the way he handles negotiations to get to the deal that he wants, and he said this in The Art of the Deal, he says, I convince everybody I'm the scariest, craziest man in the room. And if they don't give me what I want, I'm going to tear everything down. And the thing is, you shouldn't believe him. This is just a negotiating strategy. And in fact, if you look at how he actually behaves in particular negotiations, he never ends up tearing everything down. He ends up agreeing to actually what's kind of a sensible deal after having got people to the table by scaring the pants off them.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't play his game. What we need to do is we need to say, watch him jump up and down and wave his arms and be scary and say, thank you very much, Mr. Trump. Now can we talk serious business?
Yeah.
It's exactly what we did with the movement from NAFTA to CUSMA. He said, you remember, he won that election saying it's the worst trade agreement in the world. I'm going to rip it up. It's gone. It's history. And then when you actually look at the text of the CUSMA agreement versus NAFTA, you need a microscope to see the differences. But what he wanted, see, we've got to remember, we have to ask ourselves, what does he want? What he wanted was to be able to say, I got rid of the worst trade agreement in the world. I negotiated a new one. This one's in America's interest because I negotiated it.
It's got a new name.
It's got Donald Trump's stamp on it. That's what he wanted.
Yeah.
So, everybody, please, take that valium.
This is Nixon's madman in the White House strategy, probably done to the best effect we've seen it done.
Incredibly impressive. He's a great actor. He's got this impressive persona. We should just understand what it is and not be fooled by it, because we're being invited by all kinds of people to panic. And I think that's the worst thing we can do.
I think one area we may see some actual changes in policy is in foreign affairs. Yes. Do you think the Liberals should be looking at this now? Because he said a lot about, maybe pulling back in Ukraine. He may have a different tone on the Middle East. Where do you think that lies right now?
Well, I do think he's quite a different president in terms of foreign policy. I worry myself about his relationship with Putin. On the other hand, in the valium category, I say to myself, okay, he was president for 4 years. Did he kowtow to Putin? No, not particularly. In fact, if you actually read what Trump has said about what he said to Putin when he first came to office, he basically said, I'm paraphrasing slightly, he said, look, Vlad, there are a couple of red lines. If you cross any of those red lines, I'm going to bomb the hell out of you. Yeah. Stay within those red lines, we can be friends. I'm okay, actually, with that approach to Vlad. He didn't start by saying, do whatever you want, Vlad. I'm good with it. No, he said, look, Vlad, there are conditions to our friendship. And I also think about the people who are liable to play important roles in the Trump administration. There are a number of people who are Russia skeptics or actually quite muscular Russia opponents. And I think that, again, we're being invited to panic about something where if you look at the facts on the ground, I'm very dubious that Trump is simply going to say, let Vlad do whatever he wants in Ukraine. In fact, what he has said about Ukraine specifically is, I can broker a peace deal there by going to Vlad and saying, Vlad, if you don't do what I want, I will bomb the hell out of you, essentially. I will give Ukraine everything they need to beat you. That's not kowtowing to Vladimir Putin. So I think we need to, again, look at America's interests. We need to look not only at Trump, but who he's going to surround himself with. We need to look at how he behaved towards Russia in the first Trump presidency. And I think all of those things suggest that while Trump is undoubtedly going to be less supportive of Ukraine than his predecessor, I think the idea that he's simply going to throw Ukraine under the bus is not borne out in the facts. And as far as the Middle East is concerned, I have to say that the first Trump presidency was the most successful presidency in terms of bringing order and peace to the Middle East of any in the post-war era, bar none. The Abraham Accords, bringing a number of Arab states in the region to reach peace deals with Israel. We almost had Saudi Arabia in the tent. And remember that Saudi Arabia participated in the defense of Israel when Iran was launching attacks against it. So, I mean, in that sense, leave aside the Palestinian question for a second. Israel in the Middle East is safer, more secure, has more friends and more allies because of Donald Trump than ever before in the last, 50 years. So I think, if anything, Donald Trump's return to the White House is going to lower the temperature in the Middle East. It's going to cause Iran to pull in its horns because he's going to be inviting the Arab powers in the region to remember who their real enemy is, which is not Israel, it's Iran. That's what the regional conflict is all about. And I have great hopes that he is going to be in a position to calm the minds of a lot of people there, make it clear to the Palestinians they're not going to be able to run roughshod over Israel. They're not, the alliance of Hamas and Hezbollah and Israel and the Houthis and so on is going to be able to overrun Israel or drive them from the river into the sea. All of these things are going to be clearly off the table. And I think that's the condition of any reasonable peace in the Middle East.
Yeah. One more quick one for you. Pierre Poilievre, conservative leader, how do you think he should play this?
Well, let's turn it around for a second. How will Justin Trudeau play it? Justin Trudeau will play it in the following way. He will run in the next election, not against Pierre and the Conservatives, but he will run against Donald Trump. He knows that Donald Trump is unpopular with the Canadians. It's a fair ploy, okay? And he's simply going to say about Pierre, well, he's just Donald Trump's surrogate. And if you hate Donald Trump, you don't want his surrogate. So I think Pierre is going to work quite hard not to step into that trap. And I know, for example, he's already doing so. My institute has an office in Washington. We've tried to get Pierre down to speak to policymakers in Washington as it becomes more of a known quantity. Other people in Washington have tried to do the same. He has consistently refused to go to Washington precisely because he knows that the way that the government will handle that politically is to say, you see, he's just going down to get his marching orders from Donald Trump, and he's being lionized by the Republicans, let's say, and he's just not going to give them that stick to beat him with.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much. Great insight, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.